Hello, and welcome to another episode of Aligned and Abundant, the space where we explore what it means to live a soul led, authentic, and fully aligned life. I'm Diane Marcario, your host, and today we're diving into something that's been on my heart lately: the connection between resilience and alignment. So often we think of resilience as just bouncing back, like getting knocked down and getting back up again. And yes, that's part of it. But what I've come to understand, especially through my own spiritual journey and the work I do with others, is that true resilience is born from alignment. Let me explain what I mean by that. When you are truly aligned with your soul, your values, your higher purpose, you're rooted, grounded. You have this inner compass that keeps you steady, even when life feels chaotic. And that groundedness, that's the foundation of resilience. Resilience is the byproduct of alignment, because when you know who you are and why you're here, you can move through challenges without losing yourself. You can navigate uncertainty without crumbling. You can hold space for the hard moments without abandoning your truth. And here's the other beautiful piece of it. Alignment gives resilience meaning. When you're living in alignment, the hard stuff doesn't feel random or like the universe is punishing you. Instead, it feels like initiation, growth, a deeper invitation to embody your truth. So rather than breaking you, the challenges build you. You get to say, okay, this is hard, but I trust this. I trust me. I trust the path. And in that way, your resilience protects your alignment. It becomes this powerful inner strength that says, even when it's uncomfortable, I choose to stay true to who I am. I choose to keep listening to my soul. At the root of both resilience and alignment is self-trust, that quiet, unwavering knowing that no matter what comes, you've got you. You can hold yourself through it. And you can keep walking your path with integrity, grace, and soul. So if you're going through something right now, a shift, a challenge, a moment of uncertainty, I just want to remind you, your resilience and your alignment are not separate. They're dancing together. One feeds the other, and both are guiding you home. Take a breath with me. Inhale. Exhale. See, you're doing better than you think. And your soul, it knows the way. On today's episode, I would like to introduce you to my husband, Anthony Marcario, who has faced some obstacles in his life that have tested his resilience and the commitment to keeping his soul in alignment. Anthony, welcome.
Hi, Christine. Thanks for having me on.
I'm so happy to have you on. Now, I understand that you have been through some situations in life that have built you into the person that you are today, starting with going to school, some obstacles that you faced growing up. Where is it that you would like to start today?
I want to start with speaking about my mother first, as that was the first real obstacle and resilience I felt that I had to face in my life. So with my mother, from an early age, I was born in 1988, and my brother was born in 1989, and then a year later my mother had breast cancer. And for my whole life, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. So when other kids were out having fun and going on vacations, my mother weekly had to go to a cancer treatment. And growing up, it just felt that that was normal. It was normal for her to go to treatment every Friday. It was normal for her to feel sick a lot of times. It was normal for her to lose her hair every so often, and normal where she would have to go to the hospital every so often, and she might not come back home for a while.
That had to have been heartbreaking for you growing up and bearing witness to that.
Yes, it was, looking back, definitely trying times. It was abnormal to not have her around, as my mother was one of the most important people in my life. So it was really hard to see her go through that. But I know that the treatment kept her alive for as long as it did.
Honestly, I can't believe that she was able, speaking of resilience, that she was able to push through for as long as she did. She dealt with her cancer journey for how many years would you say it was?
1990 minus 2012, 20 years.
Talk about the resilience of a person who loves her family so deeply that she was able to push through and hang on for as long as possible.
Well, that was the odd thing. She went through several doctors, and normally people with that type of breast cancer only live for maybe 5 or 10 years, and she lived almost double that amount. The only thing I could really think of was that her love for us and really wanting to see myself and my brother grow up really kept her around as long as it could.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. My family says that one of the main reasons why she's able to go so long was because she was so driven and just really wanted to see her young boys go into adulthood. Because normally with that type of cancer, it's very degenerative to the human body, and after all the different cocktails of treatments she had, they figured that she must have been fighting for a very long time, both mentally and physically, and even spiritually, to try to go for as long as she did.
At what age did you realize that your childhood may not be quite like the rest of your peers?
So, believe it or not, I didn't really realize this until I was an adult and you and I had kids. Because to me, my childhood just seemed normal. It seemed normal that you wouldn't go on vacations, the children would have to help at the house a lot of times. It was normal for the parent to be sick and the children to just try to take more of a lead in that process.
So you didn't realize that it was abnormal to have to care for one of your parents on a regular basis and to pick up where they couldn't help out in regard to having two functioning, healthy parents.
I just felt that growing up, we always thought that many hands make less work. So if my mother wasn't feeling good or couldn't clean or cook for the day, we would have to pick up the slack. I didn't look at it that she was doing as much as she could and even dealing with the cancer, going to treatments and feeling very tired often. I thought it was normal for kids to help out and do things around the house to make it function, because if we didn't, then it was going to function. She might overexert herself and hurt herself. She could get too tired of something, she could fall and hurt herself. So I just felt that in doing what we could do, it helped in the small ways that we could try to do things to make her life easier.
And I'm sure she appreciated that because, in the same manner that she was hanging on and fighting for you, you were fighting for her by offering her the opportunity to rest and relax while you and your brother took on responsibilities that normally may have fallen under her umbrella or your father's umbrella, for example. That you were both able to grow and mature a bit faster than others because you had that weight of responsibility on your shoulders.
I mean, we still had fun too. We would play video games, but I do remember every month we'd have to clean the bathrooms because she wasn't able to. We would help in cooking. There was a lot of cleaning. We would do all our shopping with her. We pretty much were never alone. So when we had to go shopping, we would always be with her and carry the groceries. She would still shop, but we would push the cart. So it was just stuff today that you feel like an adult that wasn't sick could do it, but as a sick adult, you had to rely on other people to really help and try to do these things to make sure the family was fed, the house was clean, and dinner was ready when my father came home.
Now, tell me a little bit more about her treatments. How often did you have to go, and how did that affect you as someone at the age that eventually had to become one of the responsible adults for driving her back and forth to her treatments?
From an early age, we had to go to treatments with her because my father worked and we couldn't be home alone. The treatment day meant that you would go to the hospital, you'd leave at like 5 or 6 in the morning. You got to the hospital by 7 or 7:30. You had breakfast with mom. They got her into the chair and she really sat in the chair for 4 or 5 hours. And I was lucky I had books, crossword puzzles, a Game Boy, music. Mom would just read or sleep. As I got older, I was just able to drive her myself. So I would just sit with her, talking to her more or reading more, less game stuff. But it was hard as I got older to see what she was going through and all the pain she put herself through to try to keep herself longer, because at any time she could have just given up and said, I don't want to. She could have refused treatments, and it probably wouldn't have lasted much longer than that.
So really through her action, she was modeling the act of resilience for you, and in turn, you were able to become as resilient as you are today, because you are one of the most resilient people that I know in regards to you didn't let this destroy you. You didn't let this break you. You didn't let this turn into something that soured your life. In fact, I think it did the opposite for you, because one of the things that you always expressed to me, especially when we were first beginning to date and get to know one another, was the fact that you wouldn't sweat the small things, because in the grand scheme of the life that you've lived so far, you had seen and witnessed so much that you would oftentimes rejoice over the little joys and exciting moments that you can find in this life, because at the end of the day, the most important thing is life and having those that you love around you for as long as possible. Would you say that's true?
I would agree. I just feel like you have to celebrate the little things, because you never really know, is tomorrow guaranteed, if someone's going to get sick, if something's going to happen. So because of that, I feel like you have to just really enjoy the moment that is given to you. And it's only after the fact could you realize, like, I could have done things differently, and then regret seeps in. So instead, I feel like you have to enjoy every moment, enjoy the small wins, and it'll just make you a happier and more resilient person.
And with that, you have to remember that in life, we may have regrets, but at the end of the day, we can only learn from them. We can't go back and redo the past. So you can take those lessons that you've learned and bring them into your present life.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that you have been able to push through any regrets that you have had, and how does that look for you today?
When I go to sleep at night, I count my blessings and think about what happened for the day. But I did everything I could to maximize my day, live it to the fullest, so I don't have any regrets.
So you've turned those ideas of regret into more of an act of resilience.
Yeah, I want to try to maximize my day and do as much as I can, and really whatever's challenging me, make sure that I know eventually that challenge, I can overcome it. If my mother could have breast cancer for 22 years, and she had it several times, she was in remission several times, and it came back several times. And if she can go through what she went through for 22 years, there's really nothing that I can't do and overcome.
That's pretty heartbreaking. You're mentioning a few different stages of her life. She was in remission, but then eventually she had to go down the hole of getting treatment again, doing more rounds of treatment. I'm sure that shaped you as a person, having to feel like there was hope and then the hope was taken away from you. Can you speak on that?
Sure, as a young child, you always think that the doctor is going to solve whatever the sickness is, and the medicine is working. And the thing is, medicine has come a long way since my mother passed away, and it's much better now. They're talking about having more personalized cancer treatments. But with it, we knew that it was going to be a lifelong thing. So we know sometimes she would have radiation and she would lose her hair for a long time and she would cover it up. She did have fake hair as well. We knew that for her, if it was chemotherapy, she could only skip like 4 chemotherapy treatments at a time in a year. So that basically meant wherever we were, had to work around it. If her numbers were good, it can go longer. If her numbers were bad, it could be every week. But normally she had to go every week.
So it was constant monitoring and checking up on the situation in order to determine the appropriate steps and the appropriate treatment.
Correct. Every time they go, they would take her blood work and look at the numbers. She tried to eat very healthy. No drinking, no smoking, barely any alcohol. She had to live that kind of life. Was as healthy as possible for her, so that would, again, prolong herself.
I understand. That is a beautiful story that you shared with us. I'm sure your mother was an amazing woman. As Anthony's wife, I was not blessed with the opportunity to meet her, but as someone who is spiritual, I have talked to her in spirit. So luckily for me, I have had the opportunity to quote unquote talk to her. And she is, of course, super proud of Anthony. She wishes she was here. Side note, She's always drinking tea up in heaven, so we always laugh about that. All right, so having grown up with a home environment like that and a mother who was facing difficulties on a regular basis but showed her true braveness and resilience, that bled into other areas of your life. Now, you went to school to become a teacher, correct?
Correct.
And when you graduated from your university, how soon were you able to land that dream job that you always wanted?
It was a long 4 years before I got my first teaching job in my first classroom.
Are you currently a teacher?
I am currently a teacher, yes.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you so much for your service.
You're welcome. Thank you.
What did you do for those 4 years while you were waiting for your dream opportunity to come your way?
Yes, I did graduate from my university in 2010 with a background in history and a teaching certificate. As a newly experienced college student, I had bills to pay, I had a car, I wanted to drive around, I wanted to go out and see my friends, and I had my student loans kick in. So I needed to get something to bring money into my bank accounts. I was substitute teaching, but the problem with substitute teaching at the time, even today, is that they call you the morning of, and if they don't call you, you don't make any money. So I started to work in retail. I also worked at an insurance company as well. And while I was working at these types of jobs for 4 years, I kept applying for teaching jobs. Kept applying. Sometimes I did 20 in a month. Sometimes I did 50 in a month. It just depended on how far was I willing to drive and who would just give me a shot. And thankfully, I did get a chance 4 years later on an interview in early September. It was for a history job. The principal happened to like me. I literally met him a week before the Board of Ed was going to meet to discuss if they were going to hire me or not. And he literally only had an interview with me. I didn't even have to demo with him, whether they were in a rush or he really just liked me and saw the potential, how good of a teacher I was going to be. And then a week later, I got approved, and then it was, hey, I apologize, I'm leaving in like 2 weeks. So then I left.
The other option is that he was just completely desperate and you were the only person that showed up. I'm just kidding. I'm sure you were an amazing interviewee. I want to ask you more about when you were sitting behind the desk of those jobs where you had to call customers and beg them to take on services. How did that feel for your soul? How did that feel? Did you feel like you were in alignment? Can you speak on that?
Definitely not in alignment. So as a full-time teacher, I'm almost in my 10th year teaching. And with it, the good news is every day I go to work and I'm happy and excited and I'm ready to teach these kids and make them full functioning adults. When I went to that job, not in alignment, every day I pretty much went to work saying, oh my gosh, I really curse word this place.
Yeah,
I cannot wait to get out of this place. I would literally drive in and I'm like, oh my God, why am I here? And then I would leave and I'm like, yes, I'm free. Like it's like I ran away from jail. And then I knew when I go to bed, I'm like, oh crud, I have to do this again.
Yeah.
And I would dread it just every single time, literally every day. I don't think there was any days I was like, I want to be here.
And on top of that, you had an hour commute as well, correct?
Yes.
So it's almost like the universe was truly testing your patience, your dedication to trying to lock in that dream job that you wanted of becoming a school teacher, as well as your resilience.
Oh, yes. I mean, very easily. I know people who are still in that insurance company that are now managers and higher-ups, but I knew every day was just bothering my soul and my being like, this is not what I was going to. I don't want to hear people talk about what insurance they want, how can I help them, and knew that people were going to be screening the calls, and they would really be listening to you, and they would critique every little thing, and I was like, I don't want to be around this.
That just wasn't for you. There are people who may still be in that job that love that job. That is their dream job, but you knew, in regards to human design, Anthony and I are actually the same. We are both generators 3-5, so our frustration is the part that lets us know that we are not happy, that we are not in our soul's alignment. So when we feel frustration in our job or in a particular area of our lives, that is our cue from the universe for us to make some changes. So you recognize that right away just by, again, leaning into how you literally felt going to this job, even though you really, really enjoyed your coworkers.
Yes, coworkers
you
nice.
Just couldn't stomach the particular position and the ins and outs of that day. You're much happier now. You're in your flow, which is evident through the amazing teaching track record that you have.
Yeah, I knew I was looking for a paycheck. I just knew I wasn't really enjoying the work. I learned a lot from it, which is really great knowledge to know, but I knew I only did it for the paycheck. Versus now I know like it's not for the paycheck. It is to educate people and to communicate with people and try to make sure the students are getting the best education they can get.
Right, of course. And we know that sometimes you have to make sacrifices. You have to do things that you may not particularly like to do at the current moment, but you have to in order to survive. And what's important is that you are able to self-reflect and make the necessary changes in order to get where you want to go. That's any path in life that needs to be followed. You just make it work. You make it happen. You take step after step.
Yes, I agree.
Once you landed that teaching job, it brought with it many benefits, including the fact that that job is where we actually met. We were definitely friends at first. And I guess you would be persistent as well. Persistent and resilient. And eventually, well, now we're married. So there's definitely a story there.
Yes.
But tell me, because I know for one, it wasn't necessarily the easiest transition to get to where we currently are at, because I was a package deal, as I explained to you when we were first dating. I am a divorcee and I have two beautiful boys from my previous marriage. Anthony was living the single life at home. He did not have the same responsibilities that I had as a homeowner, as a parent of two amazing children. So on one of our dates, I asked him, I said, if you're going to continue to date me, then you have to be 100% in with the quote-unquote package, all three of us. And it was hard, I'm going to admit. There were some rough patches where the universe really tested our compatibility and our dedication to growing our relationship and getting to know one another. What do you want to share about that experience, or what comes to mind?
I just feel like I know we are soulmates and we're destined to be with each other. It's really the best package I ever accepted in my life.
Aww.
And with it, I dated several people before, and I'm glad I was able to wait for you and the boys to be part of my life. And everything after fell into place. I knew that I wanted to be a husband, have children, and have a house. Once I felt that we were moving forward with our relationship, then we did get married. I got two boys. We now have a daughter as well, and we have a house. All those things got completed once I was willing to align myself with the universe was giving, which is you and the boys, and then move forward from there. And that completed the other things on the list that I really wanted to achieve.
Now, I know that you shared with me a few different things in regards to what you were looking for in a specific partner. And I would say that compared to other men that I've talked to out there, you weren't the type to just date every single person that came your way or showed interest. You were quite resilient in holding out for what you were looking for, meaning that you honored traits and characteristics of a woman that you were specifically looking for. And while you leaned into opportunities and experiences to date other people and get a feel for what you were truly looking for, you didn't just settle for the first person that came along. So in that of itself shows some resilience.
Right, each person I really got to know or dated let me realize what I was looking for, which is good, and also what I did not want in my life or didn't need. So with that, I feel like each person really brought me one step closer really to you. It let me see that I'm looking for someone who was motherly and caring and kind and funny and amazing and responsible and driven and could really be someone that I know that I want to spend the rest of my life with, because not only would life be an adventure, but they would help me evolve and learn and grow.
Yes. Thank you. I do push you to grow, hence why you're on my podcast and we're doing this journey.
It's a fun one, though.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you so much for sharing some of your story. If you had to wrap everything up and tie your resiliency to alignment, could you articulate that for us?
Sure, of course. So here's the thing. When you are resilient and you keep looking for the happiness that you know you deserve, and it does resonate with you and you're on the right path, then things happen. That proves that you are in alignment. We as humans don't always know what the right path is, but if we are on the right path, things, I feel, they go smoothly, things are moving ahead, you're really going forward with the path you're supposed to be going on.
And you only know that you're on the correct path because of what?
So for me, it's, again, you're going to laugh. It's for me either when I'm eating and I'm either like humming a song or like music. I can feel when it's happening. I just feel really happy externally and internally that I know like what I'm doing is what I'm supposed to be doing.
So you feel good. You
Right.
feel the emotions of happiness, contentedness, pleasure.
Right.
Whereas when you're not in alignment, you feel the opposite. You feel the frustration, you may feel anger, or you may be upset. So leaning into your alignment brings you closer to your soul's purpose, which is bringing joy to other people's lives, whether it's your students or your family or your colleagues that you've worked alongside with. Well, I want to thank you so much. Do you have any closing thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience?
I just want to say that if things are going bad, it's only a temporary thing. It's on the path to get you on to what you're supposed to be doing. And if things are going great, just keep being grateful and excited, enjoying this great adventure that we call life. Whatever happens, as long as you keep pushing forward and keep achieving your dreams, it can happen. It might happen today, it might happen tomorrow, but we all go through different experiences, and life is hard sometimes. Life is also really great and amazing and full of just such wonderful things, whether it comes to interacting with different people, nature. There's really just a lot for us to offer each other, and we all should be trying to strive to push not only ourselves to become better, but also to help society, the planet, and things to keep moving forward.
I love that even in your closing thoughts, you still are literally exemplifying the true spirit of a resilient soul. Well, thank you so much, Anthony, for being on this episode of Aligned and Abundant. To my listeners, I appreciate you listening in and hearing about real life experiences. I want to encourage you to find your own resilience and lean into the whispers of the universe to allow them to guide you on your soul-aligned path and to be strong when obstacles come your way. On an end note, I want to leave you with a closing line. When you're resilient and in alignment, you don't just survive the storm, you rise from it clearer, stronger, and more connected to who you truly are. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I want to thank in spirit Diane Marcario. You are a beautiful soul, both in your lifetime and in heaven.